This game, they play with 25 minutes on the clock. Gukesh is dominant in classical chess, but has not dedicated as much time to improving his rapid and blitz. Most chess tournaments are played with 2 hours on the clock. 25 minutes is not a lot of time, and 3 minutes or 5 minutes is even less. And so it takes time to become a well-rounded player, a player who can play really well fast and also slow. And before the tournament, Magnus, he answered an honest question in an interview, which was then, exploded out of context and like, I don't consider Gukesh one of my stronger rivals in this format. Well, here we go. Gukesh immediately challenging the knight on the c3 square. The most common move here for white is to play the move knight to d5, attacking the bishop. But Magnus plays knight f3. His point is he wants to get into a non-theoretical position against Gukesh. Gukesh's openings are fantastic. He just had a training camp to become the world champion. That means that in the database, in the storage units, he has a lot of ideas that he hasn't even yet played. Black gives up the dark squared bishop to damage the pawn structure, and then solidifies the dark squares with a move pawn to d6. Magnus plays e4, Gukesh plays knight to d7. The fact that Gukesh is playing knight d7 instantly shows that he's still in some preparation. The knight goes to the c5 square. Traditionally, the knight likes to stand on c6, but we invest 2 moves so that we put pressure on white's center on e4 and on d3. The bishop goes back to c2, and Gukesh clearly showing this is still his preparation. He's still in something that he has extensively researched and played. Now, Magnus plays queen e2. So, a couple of ideas here. We want to reposition this knight. This knight is not going to be pressuring the center. We want to move it to d2. Maybe we even want to move it to f1, and then we want to recommit it to come forward. Gukesh plays a5. So he takes a completely structural, positional approach to the game. Magnus brings the knight back. To anybody watching this that's a beginner and doesn't understand why the guys are not castling, as you get better, you get to break the rules. As a beginner and intermediate player, you should stick to the principles. You should castle. Both of you should castle. You should not move pieces the way these guys are doing it, because you will burn down the kitchen. On to g6 is the first time that there is a thought here from Gukesh's side. And he creates this sort of a position where in the long run, the f5 square is totally covered. So knight f1, the knight will never get successfully to the f5 square. And then when Magnus goes knight f1, with the idea to obviously pin, Gukesh plays here, and then on the next move, he's going to play h6 and g5. All right, so the pin comes in, he plays h6, the bishop is pushed back, and he plays g5. Why is he playing like this? Why does he have the luxury to play like this? Well, he has no interest in putting the king here. He's going to leave his king in the center of the board. How is that possible? Why is that possible? A king in the center of the board is exploitable if the center is open, but you can't open the center. You don't have a d pawn anymore, and this pawn will not be able to trade anything. The computer likes white's position because the computer overestimates the value of a bishop pair. Magnus has the 2 bishops, Gukesh just has 1 bishop. So queen d7 from Gukesh. And now Magnus plays the move f3. It's a very slow type of game, and from this position, it's clear that it is Magnus who feels a little bit more comfortable. He has a 4-minute time advantage. He's really taking his time. Both guys are not showing each other their intentions. They are not committing their kings, because maybe you commit your king and black starts an attack. Maybe you want to commit your king this way. Now, Gukesh spends a little bit of time here, and he plays b5. He immediately begins attacking Magnus. He has committed both sets of side pawns. GHAB. This is a boxing match. I mean, the man is winging punches at Magnus. Magnus is kind of taking a calculated approach. And, I'm going to make an analogy. Gukesh is playing this game like Ilya Tsapuria, all right, who just became the 155-pound champion with a knockout over Oliveira, probably the greatest 3-fight run in history, beating Holloway and Volkanovski and Oliveira. He is just, and now, Magnus, this is not just a chess game. There are very few chess games between elite players over history are much bigger than chess. I'm talking Fischer-Spassky level. Like, Magnus has not been challenged by a member of the younger generation as consistently as now he has with Gukesh, and the storyline behind it, right? Being the world champion, having the title Magnus used to hold. So now Magnus plays knight to d5. Gukesh gives up his bishop, and we have cd5. And I remember looking at this position and thinking, okay, Gukesh has sort of been a little bit outsmarted here. A little bit, just like the position feels like a Magnus type of game. He controls the game. And on the very next move, Gukesh left Magnus's position. He took a step backwards, Magnus went here. So now Magnus has a 6-minute time advantage. The game is shifting in his direction. He's going to potentially damage the pawns. He's going to potentially create his own counterattack. It doesn't really feel like black has something lurking here, but Gukesh now plays king f8. He says, you know what? This has not gone my way. I just have to make a move. I'm down 8 minutes. I'm gonna maybe put my king on g7. How is Magnus going to attack me? Now the ball is hit back to Magnus, who plays g3, a typical Magnus move. Just making an improvement. Gukesh also makes an improvement. And now a big moment here. What is next? Well, we're Magnus, so we just make a solid improving move. We're biding time. Queen e7, but you gotta do something. Gukesh is baiting you into doing something. Rook g1, we're still not gonna do anything. The game is waiting to blow up. Like, are we gonna play for h4? We can't go g4 because the knight comes back. Like, are we gonna take the knight? Is that an overcommitment? The knight goes back to f6, and Magnus finally lashes out with b4. But look how much time went off his clock. In the span of 3 moves, he went from 20 to 12 to a position where it's 12 to 11, and apparently the wrong move. Apparently, b4 is giving black too much. Apparently, the computer liked long castling and just going ballistic. I mean, just long castle and launching an attack on the other side of the board. With b4, Gukesh now gets life. He gets to open the a file and plants the knight on a4 and is like, well, this seems like an improvement over the previous position. And now Magnus plays bishop d3, which apparently, even though it's a very natural follow-up, apparently is also erroneous. And Gukesh now clutch move c6. You look at that move, you go, what? c6 defends the pawn, but more than anything else, it attacks white's center. And you might be looking and going, isn't that a free pawn? The answer is yes. But the problem is, now Gukesh has backup. d5 anyway. This white pawn is totally cut off. It's like you wrap, like a skin tag. You wrap, it's gonna dry out. The pawn is gone. We're not gonna be saving that pawn. And suddenly, Gukesh is getting counterplay. This little king walk completely got Gukesh back into the game because the center is now opening up. And this is anybody's game. The game is now totally out of control. Magnus plays pawn takes d5, Gukesh plays knight takes d5. Suddenly white is like, wait a minute, why didn't I castle? Frankly, why didn't I castle that way? Now my king is going to be stuck in the center, which could be a problem. It's going to take me multiple moves to safeguard my king. a3. Magnus still keeping control of the game. Here comes Gukesh with rook d8. There are threats on the bishop. There are threats to get in the knight. There's threats like knight b2, deflecting the queen away from the defense of the bishop. Suddenly, it's Magnus Carlsen who's down on time. He was up 8 minutes in the early middle game. He is now down on time. Gukesh not only has been outplaying everybody in this tournament, he's been outplaying people on the clock. Rook d6. Bishop takes b5. Magnus grabs another pawn to clear out the entire left side of the board, but that allows Gukesh to jump in with his knight. Now it's craziness. There is a hanging queen. There is a hanging bishop. Great move here for Magnus. Bishop c5, a counterattack. If you take the queen, I take your queen. If you take my bishop, I take your other knight. So we have this, and this. Magnus gets a rook, Gukesh gets both the bishops, but white is up a lot of pawns. 2 of them, but it really feels like more, because this is a 3-on-0. But the problem in this position is the white king. So Magnus starts to run the king. Gukesh goes back with the knight. Now there is a hanging pawn. Now I have ideas like knight c4 and e4 attacking white. And both guys are down to 5 minutes. Magnus goes queen d3. Gukesh plays the best move. Queen e6! The only move in the position to maintain any advantage. Simultaneous threats of infiltration. Infiltration over here. e4, covering important key squares. This is a great move. 420 to 530. Magnus with this move goes down to a 5 counterpunch. Now he probably saw that coming, which is why he gave a check. But after king back to g8, which is deemed a miss, but this is just game review being annoying, it's a big problem for white, who moves his rook to the wrong square. Rook e1 was maybe the move, and still the computer wants to hide the king. But after this, pawn takes f3, knight e4 is coming in, queen a2 is coming in, rook a3 is coming in. You have 3 extra pawns, but you can't get them moving. Magnus plays rook e5, and now queen h3. That was the idea all along. There was 2 infiltration spots, h2, g2, both hanging. Magnus has to take a pawn, but rook a3, knight c4 also. Rook a3 is going to be incoming on the next move, which is why rook a5 has to be played. Rook a3, knight c4. If you allow all of it, the king is just hunted out on both sides of the board, so Magnus has to give up a rook to survive the counterattack. His pawn is very close to promotion, but it's just not going to get there. Queen d7, but here comes knight e3. The rook is hanging. Queen g2 is there. Rook d2, check here. And Gukesh comes back with his knight. Knight c6, rook a5. Rook e5 is coming, and Magnus resigns. Gukesh ended this game with a full